Hey, it's been a while. I haven't been making any videos recently, as you may have noticed, but what you wouldn't know is that I also haven't been watching any YouTube videos either. And I wanted to talk about both of those things. So recently I've been struggling a bit with parasocial relationships, and not just the kind where you think an influencer is your friend, but something that might be worse than that, which is thinking an influencer is your teacher or mentor, or like a trusted adult who knows more than me and is definitely qualified to give me accurate information and provide insightful or appropriate advice. I've been out of school for over 4 years now, which is ridiculous. I should not be 26 years old, and it should not be the end of 2025. But either way, I miss the feeling of a qualified professional telling me what to do. I think I've been trying to fill this hole in my life by watching artists online who make educational videos, which is quite stupid actually, because there's this thing that happens when you look at YouTube videos for information. You'll realize that anyone with real success in their field is not going to be wasting their time making videos about it. Content creators with big channels and lots of followers have built their audiences by making a lot of content, obviously, and this is time and effort they didn't spend on the thing they're pretending to be qualified to teach. This is what I'm calling the content creator paradox. I'm making this video because there have been a few things that have happened recently, and I want to talk about it and just articulate these thoughts and get them out of my head. And I'm just going to share a bunch of these thoughts while I show some painting process from some artworks I've made recently. In one of my previous videos, I talked about one of my art goals at the time, selling my work in person at markets and conventions. And I've actually made a lot of progress with this goal. This year, I've done 18 markets so far. These have mostly been smaller one-day art markets. The biggest event I did was Twin Cities Pride, which was absolutely ginormous, and I'll talk more about it later. I did one indoor expo type event, and I've been accepted into a couple juried shows in December and larger conventions for next year. All this to say, I set a goal to start selling my work in person. I've made real progress to meet that goal, and now I'm someone who knows how to do art markets. To go from being an anxious introvert who couldn't even imagine attending big art festivals and talking to any artists there, let alone vending at the event and managing an entire booth by myself, the thing that has helped me the most was watching a bunch of YouTube videos and becoming a part of the Artist Alley community online. By watching probably more than 100 videos, I was able to figure out everything from figuring out how to display my artwork, managing inventory, researching events, and everything else. If you've watched any of my videos, you know that I have a lot of thoughts about art business advice and content creator mentorships, the kinds of people who have business advice channels without ever having successful art businesses, wolf businesses that sell the idea of being an artist wearing the sheep disguise of actual art businesses. As soon as I finished my pyramid scheme video, I removed all these types of channels from my algorithm, and I stopped giving them my attention. But I thought I could still watch market or convention-related videos because these people are clearly selling their art. They're not pretending to have art businesses. Like, this is different, right? But I've had some concerns, and I just had the realization that I moved from one problem to another, and so this is a rant video. Side note, in my videos, when I complain about things, I like to provide examples and cite my sources when relevant, but I'm going to try something different today because most of my complaints here apply to basically everyone who makes market or convention content online. And I don't think it's helpful to be critical of anyone specifically when it's everyone doing these things. So the breaking point. About 6 months ago, I realized the convention vlogs were causing a similar problem for me and my art because I was starting to feel the same way that I felt when I watched all the business advice videos. And it's not that I was seeing the pyramid scheme warning signs. This was something different, but it's got me feeling the same way. What happened was that I had my own booth at Twin Cities Pride. It was my first 2-day festival, and it was my first time vending at an event of that scale. Fun fact, Twin Cities Pride is basically the biggest free Pride event, with almost 500,000 attendees every year, which is absolutely insane. It was a life-changing experience. I talked to so many people that I lost my voice, and it was the most art I've ever sold, ever. While I'm generally okay with talking about money, I'm going to intentionally not share the amount of sales I had or what kind of profit I had. I don't want to brag, but I really do feel like I need to brag. I've been watching so many market advice videos that were like making this much money in a weekend at this event. And as soon as I had a successful art fair weekend, I was thinking that it was finally my turn to make that video. I made this much money at an art festival, and here's all the info you need to do the same. I seriously considered making that video because, I would love to share everything I learned and be a resource for anyone trying to do the same thing. But I don't really want to make that kind of video. I think I've talked about this before, about the fact that I'm not trying to have an art business advice channel. I have other creative projects I'm working on, and I would have to take time and attention away from those actual art projects to make the advice video. I'm not proud of this urge that I had, the urge to make that video just so I could brag about how much money I made in the title and thumbnail. And I really had to question why I wanted to make a video that I would consider to be obnoxious and clickbait if it were anyone else making it. This reflection was a big part of why I stopped watching all those convention vloggers and other art business or art advice channels. There are a lot of parts about being an artist alley vlogger or an art YouTuber in general that I've gotten a taste of and decided they tasted yucky. To me, making the clickbait profit at my first big art festival is a line that I decided not to cross. And what's been bugging me about these art YouTubers is that they don't have any issues with the things that I've realized are boundaries for me and my art business. 1, they don't care that making videos means making less art. 2, they know their videos will only appeal to beginner artists, and these beginner artists are quite profitable. They don't care that they don't really have an audience for their art. Or, they sell their art in person, and then their videos are only for the aspiring artists online. I mean, I'm watching their videos to learn how to do markets, and I could not care less about their art. 3, they're excited to play that clickbait money numbers game. And I should say this, a lot of people think that playing to the algorithm is something that YouTubers do reluctantly. Like, they have to put their income in the thumbnail to play the game. That's not true at all. The most successful content creators online are only successful because they enjoy playing the game. These 3 things have changed the way that I see them and completely ruined my ability to watch these types of videos. Because I want to make art, and I want an audience that is there for my art. I do like sharing my process, and there have been times where I've enjoyed figuring out what works on social media, but it's an occasional hobby for me, and definitely not something I could do as a full-time job. Again, I would have loved to share my experience at Pride and everything I've learned about vending in general, especially now that I'm in a position where I'd be qualified to give advice. But I have better things to do, honestly. I have not made many videos this year because I've been busy with other projects, as I always seem to be. For example, I just wrapped up my first solo exhibit. I had about 40 digital drawings on display from the tarot project that I've been working on. If you want to check it out, I made a virtual tour, which I will link in the description. This virtual exhibit was actually a whole other project in itself, but I've been really enjoying sharing my art in this way. Anyway, I would love to follow an art YouTuber who's doing the same kind of projects I'm working on. Or even better, an artist who is 3 steps ahead of me. But this person would not be making advice videos, right? Because I'm not making videos. Because we would both be making art. We're organizing solo exhibits and figuring out how to document these exhibits to share them online. Or selling art. or being a working professional. And that's the paradox. The kind of artist I would love to follow and see videos from are exactly the kind of artists who are not prioritizing making content over art. This goes back to my bigger argument about the paradox and the idea that a working artist is not going to be interested in being an influencer. Their art practice is so successful that they don't have to resort to making art business advice content, and they don't have to post educational content and cosplay a teacher on social media. A phrase I've been thinking about a lot recently is the idea that those who can't do, teach. And I think this phrase is disrespectful to teachers, but I'd like to propose an amendment. Those who can't do, influence. A person becomes an influencer when they fail to do the thing they were actually trying to do. You know, artist content creators always resort to selling business advice and offering mentorships when they realize their art doesn't sell very well. So these content creators are not really qualified to give the advice they give or peddle, because if they could be artists, they would be artists. But they can't be artists, so instead, they're teaching. But they're not even really teaching, they're influencing. There are exceptions, obviously, but it's rare that the doers will choose to spend any of their time or effort on making videos for YouTube.com. If you're an artist who follows a lot of other artists online, you've probably noticed how inevitable it is that your favorite artists will start sharing business advice, whether it's a course, a mentorship, or just business-related content. And it's because they realize that most of their followers are beginner artists, and that there's an untapped potential there. So instead of making reels about their art process, suddenly they're making reels about how much money they're making as a full-time artist, or what it's like to run an art business, or sharing the latest updates about having their products manufactured. If their art was good enough to sell, they would be doing that. But instead, they've pivoted their businesses to fellow artists, selling art advice. Again, I've talked about this sort of thing in relation to the pyramid scheme thing. If someone actually had good business advice, or vlogging advice, or market convention advice, or whatever, they would use this advice for themselves, and they would have successful businesses. The reason I wanted to mention this argument again is that I've been grappling with the counter-argument to this argument, which I wanted to talk about. The counter-argument being that the artist who chooses to share business advice, and in this video, the artists who choose to share art market advice, these artists are just being transparent. You know, they're doing us all a favor by sharing information, resources, and advice, and it's so generous of them to be doing this. And if you really think about it, it would be gatekeeping if they didn't share this information. And to that, I would say, I am so sick of how normalized it's become for artists or any other kind of small business owners to be sharing private business information. And they have to be transparent. And by transparent, they mean brag about all the money they're making. Because if they didn't, they'd be gatekeeping, which is just so terrible for an artist to do. Also, the dichotomy of, I made 5K in one day, versus the next video they upload is, oh my God, running a business is so hard, it's not as profitable as you think. And by that, they mean it's not as profitable as I make it seem when half my videos are titled, look at how much money I'm making, you have to click on this video. Someone who always brags about how much money they make at each art market they do is not the same as transparency. Keeping business information private is not gatekeeping that information. This has become one of the red flags I look out for on social media. Artists who make videos about money because they need that validation. It doesn't seem like these artists really care about sharing their art if they'd rather prioritize the content that gets more views and attention. And I'll proudly be up on my high horse here. When I share stuff on social media, I have a pretty good idea of what will do well and what won't. For example, I know that when I share my original gouache paintings, these will get fewer likes than when I share fan art. But that's not going to stop me from sharing them. I share this art because I want to, and some people still want to see this work. I'm on social media to share my art. I could make the numbers bigger by making business content, being transparent, quote unquote, about my business. When I had my successful art market at Pride, it really felt like I had to share how much money I made. Did I even actually make that much money if I didn't tell everyone about it? Now, I've had some people reach out to me for business-related questions. I actually had someone email me a bunch of career questions. They had an assignment requiring them to interview an artist they admire, and I'm always happy to help, and I would share numbers if they came up in our conversation. But that's not how I'm starting our conversation. Before a person has even had the chance to say hello, I'm not yelling, "I made so much money. OMG, having an art business is so cool, and I can't believe it's popping off. And you all need to know how much money I made this weekend." That's not what I'm doing. Honestly, it just seems so unprofessional to be sharing financial and business information with your customers. But somehow, influencers have rebranded their videos from bragging into transparency. Instead of, "I want you to be jealous of how much money I made, so I'm going to tell you," now it would be gatekeeping if I prevented you from knowing this information. Huh? Or what's even worse is when artists have this kind of information as part of their Patreon. So then it's, "Pay me to brag about how much money I'm making." And it's all presented as informational behind-the-scenes knowledge that you can use to grow your art business. I'm going to say this. Actually, I think this is one of my arguments in the pyramid scheme video. I don't know how knowing how much money someone makes is supposed to be helpful. Obviously, being curious about money is a very human thing, and it can be satisfying to have some of those questions answered. But that knowledge has no practical use, and it's definitely not worth paying a monthly subscription for. Oh my God. As we all know, the best art teachers are the ones who brag about how successful they are, knowing that when their students see how successful they are, that'll help them be successful somehow. Ever since I found out that some artists make $3,000 to $5,000 in sales at anime conventions, I've definitely been able to use that information to also make $3,000 to $5,000 in sales at my events, and not just felt bad when I don't make that much money. Maybe some of you are thinking, well, these people are sharing so much information for free. They're so kind and generous, and it's such a great resource. What's the harm in watching these videos and just taking what's helpful? I feel like the only person on this entire planet who's bothered by ads, and bothered by the fact that ads, in some way, shape, or form, are the majority of the income for any YouTuber. YouTube ads, sponsors. Every booth setup video, for example, is just an entire catalog of affiliate links. I've seen Patreons with exclusive paywalled advice. And of course, artists are always advertising their other social media pages, which is where they actually post their art, and then their shop updates. Or if you want to leave a tip, here's a coffee link. So that's 7 things that are advertised in every video. And it feels like we're at a point where a lot of the videos only exist to be a vehicle for these ads. Would these videos exist if not for all of the ads attached? I would argue no. For example, if an art market advice channel wanted to share some product or merchandise ideas, they could share that information as a list, right? I can't imagine why in the world someone would make a 30-minute long YouTube video to share a list of things that could be read in 5 minutes. A 30-minute long video is nowhere near the best way to share this information, but it's the only way with ads. You can't sponsor a grocery list. So a content creator would make this video about product ideas so they can make money, and the making money is actually the only reason this video even exists. There is a specific video I'm referencing. I won't be linking it, but you could probably find it if you wanted to. The video was 65 plus product ideas for illustrators. And I was so frustrated watching it. I thought it would be a great video for me to watch. I don't sell a lot of products in my store. I do prints, stickers, magnets, and a few random things like socks and keychains. So not a lot of products. I was curious about what else I could produce. Okay, in the first 6 minutes of the video, there are about 7 product ideas, only after a bunch of fluff. A bunch of unnecessary disclaimers and caveats and these are just a bunch of ideas based on my own research. You should do your own research to see what works best for you. Obviously, you don't have to do all of these ideas. That would be crazy. That would be so much ideas to do. Or you can use these ideas as a jumping off point. Take an idea and do your own thing with it. On and on. And then the 7 ideas are postcard prints, poster prints, handmade 3D prints, risograph/linocut prints, canvas prints, trading card prints, and a tarot deck. So, in other words, I watched 6 minutes of video to find out that I could make small prints or big prints, or handmade prints, or another kind of handmade prints, or canvas prints, or card prints, or a tarot deck. And it was at this point that I clicked off the video. Before I complain about the video as a whole, I need to go on a tangent about tarot decks. I'm actually working on illustrating a tarot deck, and I'm at the point in this project where it's really starting to suck. I've drawn about 40 cards so far, and I have 40 cards left. I've been working on this project for a year and a half now, and I'm only halfway done. I'm committed to finishing it, but I'm starting to get really frustrated and impatient with this project, and I want to be done. It's not a project I would recommend lightly. And honestly, I think including tarot decks in a product idea video should be a crime. Like giving legal advice without being a lawyer. Why would anyone draw 78 tarot cards for one product when they could have spent the same amount of time developing 78 different products? Just for reference, I think I technically have about 200 products that I bring with me to markets. That sounds like a lot, but most of my artwork is sold as multiple products. So most of my prints are also stickers and magnets. I honestly don't even think I have 78 individual artworks that I sell. A tarot deck is a terrible product to design for anyone wanting to make money, because there's no way I'm going to be able to sell enough of them to compensate myself fairly for all of the time I've spent on this project. Anyone who's actually made a tarot deck probably won't be recommending it to just anyone, which brings me back to my argument that you can't find advice from qualified artists on YouTube because they're not making videos on YouTube, because they're actually making the art that would make them qualified to give advice. In fact, recommending the tarot project would be part of the advice I would give if I were trying to sabotage younger artists. Along with, don't sell stickers. They're just super cheap and way too easy to produce, and their profit margins are terrible. Don't bother to do any research about the events or conventions you're interested in vending at. Just apply to as many as you can. And make sure to spend all of your time making YouTube videos. Obviously, the tarot suggestion really set me off, but to talk about the rest of the video, just filled with incredibly basic suggestions. I didn't watch past the first 5 minutes, so maybe the suggestions get less basic, but as I watched the beginning, I just felt like this video was an absolute waste of my time. Watching these types of videos just make me feel like these content creators don't have any respect for their audiences. They think their viewers are idiots and that they can't think for themselves and need to be told that if they want to sell their art, making art prints of their art is a product idea. Hey, did you know that you could sell your art as a print? How about a big print? Did you know you could do that? Yeah, obviously, I do know. Thank you for telling me, though. I'm going to think about selling my art as a print. Or maybe even a big print if I feel really fancy. But you know what? maybe their audience is filled with idiots, because all of the comments that I read were positive and thankful and appreciative of the fantastic ideas and amazing tips, as if these people needed to be told that they could make prints of their artwork. Even though I think this information was super basic, let's pretend there is a real audience for this information, and we want to be good teachers and to share these resources effectively. There is no way that a list of 65 plus things needs to be a 30-minute video. That is objectively a ridiculous way to present that information. It seems like video has become an established way to share information these days, but a 30-minute video is not the best way to teach this information. This could be a list. Why are you pulling me into a meeting? This could have been an email. Come on. I was watching a video about someone's market table setup, and they were talking about all of the bins and items they bought to create their display. They said that they linked all of their products in the description. And I remember this so specifically because they had a small bin that was a perfect size for washi tape, and I wanted to buy that bin to display my washi tape. Oh boy. What I learned was that market videos are not about providing resources and trying to be helpful, because if it were, it would have linked all of the products, and not just the ones that would get them money. And it's obvious that these types of videos only exist to farm Amazon affiliate link clicks. How is it not embarrassing to be an influencer? Like, these people can't make money from their art, and instead they have to convince people to buy things from the richest person on the planet so they can get their cut. That's embarrassing. And what's even more terrible is that this has happened to me multiple times. I've watched a bunch of market table setup videos or booth display videos, trying to figure out how I can display my work and set up my booth. And every single video I've watched, they make sure to find an Amazon link to every possible thing they can for the display as well as the rest of their business. They'll say, link to my camera, link to my microphone, link to my printer, link to my sticker paper, link to blah, 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 literally every part of their business. Oh, but this random bin you're interested in buying for your washi tape? Because I showed you I use it for my washi tape? I think this was from like Target or Walmart. I don't really remember. I don't know, sorry. But here's a list of links for every single part of my computer if you wanted to buy any of those from Amazon. You're welcome. I would also say these types of videos don't need to be videos either. Might as well just make a public Amazon list if that's what you're doing. But links don't have sponsors, so videos they are. The fact is that these types of videos are just not the best way to teach this kind of information. The product idea video, as well as a lot of other market advice videos, or art business videos in general, don't exist because the person making the video is an expert in their field, trying to be a teacher or a source of information for younger artists. To circle back to what I said at the beginning of the video about how I've been treating influencers like teachers, I want to expand on why that's been a terrible choice. Number one, the majority of art teachers online have no credentials. Here are some of the questions I've had to remind myself when thinking about whether someone is a trustworthy source of advice, especially online. Did this person go to art school? Do they have any form of an art career? And by that I mean real professional experience in a respected industry. These two questions are really important because they point to how these people got the knowledge that they're selling. A lot of artists online are self-taught and have never had a real job. There's nothing wrong with this, but these people should not be charging money for information they got for free. If they could teach themselves, so could anyone else, maybe even from the same sources they learned from. No need to dilute this information even further, like the most unnecessary game of telephone. Jesus Christ. And when it comes to specifically selling art, I can guarantee you that no one doing art markets got a degree in art festivals. They taught themselves everything. Why wouldn't you also just teach yourself if your goal is to do what they do? Number two, I'm getting advice on a platform in which there's no way to verify information. Here's an opinion. When you pay for school, like art school or any other kind of college or university, you are paying for a degree from an accredited institution. There are a lot of things involved in a college being accredited, but when you get information from YouTube, you are getting advice on a platform with essentially no regulations, and it's a platform that sells itself as being more accessible than art school. And actually, the way that every art advice YouTube channel has vilified art school is very intentional. Every single content creator I've seen criticize art school is selling their own mentorships. This is not a defense of art school, but I have to emphasize that traditional schools offer a tangible result that has widely accepted value and recognition of skills and capabilities, i.e., like a degree that you can mention on a resume to get a job. I use my college degrees all the time. They are permanently on my resume. And I guess more specifically, I use the projects I did while earning my degrees for my portfolio, which has landed me multiple jobs. But I'm really struggling to quantify any tangible value that YouTube videos have brought to my art career. Number 3. There is a reason that art content appeals to beginner artists. Art influencers making content to appeal to beginner artists have the same energy as when someone in their 20s dates a high schooler. It's because they're losers, and everyone their age can see it, and that's why they can't find someone their age to date. Art YouTubers who make videos about how to get more likes on Instagram aren't trying to appeal to their peers or to professional artists. That content is for kids who don't know better, right? Influencers only influence because it's easier to sell their lifestyle than it is to sell their art. And they're okay with that. If they were able to sell their art, they would be doing that. If they wanted to be a teacher, they would teach at an accredited institution, which would require them to have actual teaching credentials. They don't care about selling their art, and they don't care about the ethics of teaching. So what do they care about? Money and attention. You might be thinking, but Morgan, you're still making YouTube videos. Kinda seems like you also want money and attention. And to that, I would say, I spent months making a documentary about a 25-year-old tribute statue project in Minnesota, and then spent months making a video about a Twitch streamer I'm weirdly obsessed with, and then spent a few weeks making a 3-hour-long video about how every art YouTuber intentionally and maliciously misconstrued a video essay I made. Yeah, this looks like the channel of a person who's trying very hard to get attention from the masses. I don't think I could make a more random, unrelated, and frankly, unwatchable series of topics if I tried. Second of all, my last video, the 3-hour-long video, had no mid-roll ads. I'm clearly not in this for the money. I want to make the kinds of YouTube videos that I used to admire. Just sharing my thoughts without trying to sell anything, other than occasionally mentioning my art shop, which still exists, by the way, morgdesign.etsy.com. I also would love to find other artists who are doing what I'm doing. And now that I've been trying to get these market and Artist Alley convention-related videos out of my algorithm, I've been looking for new artists to watch. I've been looking for artists online who truly care about their art and are not just trying to make the numbers go up by whatever means necessary. It's hard to find smaller channels. And that's because people who genuinely care about their art aren't going to do well on social media, because they're focused on making art. They're not making videos, they're making art. And I want to connect with artists online, but the ones who are making good art are making good art. The ones who don't care about how much art they're making are making less art, and they're able to make content and focus on social media. Since my last video, something I've continued to think about is how a lot of the art YouTubers who disagreed with me, one of their main arguments seemed to be that full-time artists don't make that much art. And I know that logically that's not true. Artists make art. But it's really sinking in that Like, that's going to be the message from influencers who aren't successful artists. No successful artists were going to make a video in my defense because, like, first of all, they're not making videos. But the bigger point is that they're not even watching these YouTubers. Successful professional artists are not watching videos about how to get more likes on Instagram. Like I said earlier, these loser influencers make content for kids and beginner artists. They're probably not even on the radar of professional full-time artists. And that's the biggest difference between us. Like, as someone very passionate about art, I'm not sure why I even thought I could appeal to these people. We're in two completely different worlds. These influencers who are only motivated by money and attention are not motivated to make art, and neither are their audiences, actually. Their viewers buy into the promises of easy money and make social media numbers bigger. No one in the art business on YouTube actually cares about making art. But I don't think it's always been that way. Back in 2016, artists on YouTube were a big reason why I started making art in the first place. I used to watch time-lapse videos of people drawing and painting, and I would sometimes watch tutorials. I actually remember the specific tutorial I watched when I decided I was going to learn how to use acrylic paint. By the way, in this era of YouTube, you could just post a time-lapse with some music and have it get a bunch of views. You can't do that anymore. Nowadays, the most successful art channels aren't even making art. They test overpriced advent calendars, or, more generally, test out art products, subscription boxes, and viral art hacks or trends or whatever. If somehow an art channel is still making art, the art looks the same as it did 5-10 years ago. There's no development. Art content is just repetitive and empty. I could put a bunch of niceties and disclaimers around this statement, but this is how I feel. I, as an artist, am bigger and better than all of the art YouTubers whom I looked to for inspiration when I was just starting out. I used to put these YouTubers up on a pedestal. Like, I have genuinely struggled with parasocial relationships and managing the way I think about my favorite content creators. And I think the conversation around parasocial relationships is usually about kids who think YouTubers are their friends. But parasocial relationships are a lot more varied than that. I would say that as soon as you go to a content creator or an influencer for any kind of advice, opinion, or make a decision based on any experiences they've shared, that's a parasocial relationship. Why are you trusting this random person for advice? It's because you don't see them as a random person. It's because you trust them in some capacity, and that's a parasocial relationship. Parasocial relationships are the literal foundation of the entire monetization of content on social media. Like, the very idea of an influencer or content creator making money on social media can only happen because of parasocial relationships. Anytime that a person on social media advertises something to their audience, they are aware of that relationship and taking advantage of it. They're using these parasocial relationships to make money off their audiences. And a lot of these viewers are happy to be used that way. I've seen comments like, "Congrats on the sponsor, get that bag." Because I guess parasocially, people want their favorite content creators to be successful. And I think the subconscious thought process is that an aspiring artist is happy that their favorite artist is making money because they see themselves as being the successful artist one day and like being in their position one day. And they would want their fans to be happy they're making money. I think that is a bit delusional. No one should be happy to be advertised to. And I know that the usual argument is that content creators deserve to make a living from the stuff they make. Like, why do you expect to get content for free? Right? Because we all associate ads and sponsors with the payment for free content. And if I don't want to sit through ads, then I don't deserve to see their content. But I don't think my wanting to support a person on social media entitles them to be able to sell to me or to make money off me. A lot of times, I'm trying to watch their videos to support them. Me watching the videos is the support. If the transaction is free content in exchange for ads, like, what do I get out of this exchange if I don't even want to watch the videos and I'm just trying to support them? I can't even support any artists by watching their videos because now they use that to justify showing me ads. I am so tired of being advertised to. And maybe this is an even more parasocial stance to have, but anytime I see an ad from an artist, it's a reminder that we're not friends. Obviously, friends don't advertise to each other. Though, I think of the Subway and the Honda episodes of Community, and I know advertisements would hit a lot differently if they were done face-to-face. This is the hill I'm dying on. I refuse to be advertised to. No mid-rolls, no sponsors, no courses, no links, no Patreons. It's not that I expect content for free, but me watching and liking content online is my form of support. If that's not enough, then I'll leave. I haven't been watching any art YouTube videos recently, and barely any YouTube videos at all, honestly. I've been catching up on TV. If you're curious about what I've been watching, I've seen Lost, Mindhunter, Newsroom, Peacemaker Season 2. All great shows. Anyway, here's the conclusion of the video. I was inspired by art YouTubers to start making art, and then to start my art business, and more recently to start doing art markets. I spent so much time thinking about what it would be like to be these people. I've been trying for so long to catch up to them, watching all of their videos, following all their advice, trying to follow their artistic paths. I really put these people on a pedestal because they have a bunch of subscribers and therefore know so much more than me. I am not a famous YouTuber, obviously, so I haven't caught up to any of them in that regard. But I also feel like I've accomplished so many art-related goals to the point where I feel like I've surpassed them. When it comes to making art, having art go viral, selling art, exhibiting art, making art for client projects, and landing jobs, I really do feel like I've surpassed a lot of the people who inspired me to get started, and I feel great about the path I'm on now. But I have some weird feelings about it. I did kind of think that being a YouTuber or a content creator was inevitable for me. I'm not exactly sure why that was, but I guess it just seemed like the path that I was meant to follow, and I would be successful here eventually. I'm the type of person who is very goal-oriented. I set goals, I figure out the steps needed to achieve them, and then I see them through. I have no problems working toward my goals. The most recent example that we've just been talking about is me doing art markets. I set out to do them, and then I did them. If I really wanted to be a YouTuber, I would be doing that. I would be making more videos. I think it's very clear that I don't want to be a YouTuber because I haven't been working on that. Like, I don't want to make videos, I want to make art. It's not a priority for me, and that's fine. I'm realizing that that's not something I really wanted anyway. The nail in the coffin, as they say, is that I just landed a job. I'm going to be a full-time graphic designer again. I'll still be making the art that I want to make, but I don't have to be stressed about trying to make it. I can make art for fun, and I think that's how it should be made anyway. I can officially be done with trying to be a content creator. And I'm actually very glad about that. Will there be any more YouTube videos? Yes, at least one more, and you can expect to see it in 4 to 5 business months. Alright, thanks for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon if you would like to be notified about that video in 6 months. Leave a comment below if you have any thoughts